Good evening and welcome to the Late Late Show with me, Irish Tommy. Your eyes don't deceive you. I did actually finally get around to buying a webcam because the camera on my laptop is shite. Also, I'm going to be coming to the London Stadium for our first home game of the season against Chelsea. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's been a little while since I've been to a game, so can't wait to get over for that. I will also have James Fever on with me very shortly, as soon whenever he's ready. He'll pop in to say hello and we'll get his views on all things West Ham. At the moment, look, it's all about the transfer window and the fact that Tuesday will be the 1st of August, and right now, as of the 28th of July, we have not signed a single player, which is kind of astonishing, really. It's hard to wrap your head around. We started pre-season some time ago. Our first game is only 3 weeks away, and to still not have a single player in the door, to still not have a single player doing pre-season training with us, getting up to speed, it's shocking, and it just shouldn't happen, frankly. We got Freno. Freno was first in the door. Evening, mate. How are you? Says evening, all. Tell me how was Moyes and his transfers. LOL. Yeah. If you don't laugh, you'll cry, basically. Obviously, look, we've got the usual stuff of link after link after link after link. We're up over, I think we must be pushing towards 150 players that we've been linked with, which is the norm every summer. Now, look, the vast majority of which we probably were never really looking to buy anyway, but some of them obviously have some meat on the bones. Most recent one was James Ward-Prowse. This came out, I think it was this morning, that we had made a bid for James Ward-Prowse, who apparently Southampton value at around 35 to 40 million. The word is 40 million. They may take less, we don't know. But our bid, opening bid, was £17 million with £3 million of add-ons. Now, look, I'm all for negotiating deals. I know that's how it goes. All transfers, you do some negotiating, you come in a bit low. But frankly, that bid was completely laughable. It was actually an embarrassing bid, if we're being honest. I couldn't believe it. I can imagine the reaction that got in Southampton. When that bid comes in from West Ham. I mean, even they must have been, when they deal with transfers all the time, I'm sure they put in low offers first time round, but not like this. I mean, they must have been shocked and just laughing their arses off. It's a derisory bid, and this is not really the way to do business. I mean, at least if you're going to come in low, don't make it a laughable bid. Make it a kind of a solid enough bid, a good kind of jumping off point where Southampton can come back, or whoever it is, and say, right, that's a bit low for what we're looking for. You'd need to improve on that offer. But at least you've got the ball rolling. But to go in like that, I mean, I don't know. Like, what's the thinking? What's the thinking when you go in? Excuse me. What's the thinking when you know a club values a player at around 40-ish million? I mean, what did West Ham expect to happen? Going in with 17 plus 3 in add-ons. I just don't understand why you even put that bid in. It's just so derisory. It's laughable, and that's not how you open negotiations. I think you have to open negotiations in good faith to be taken seriously. God knows what Southampton think. Even James Ward-Prowse, who's keen on the move by all accounts and is very willing to join West Ham, probably hopes the deal goes through. Imagine him kind of being told, yeah, they made a bid, and for a second you're thinking, oh yes, here we go, finally. And then you're told what the bid was. You're thinking, oh, for fuck's sake. It probably puts a lot of doubts in James Ward-Prowse's mind right now. Not about still wanting to join West Ham, I'm sure he does. But he must be thinking, okay, they're like, how serious are they really? That they're trying to get me like very, very cheaply. So he must be worried now that we're just not going to pony up the money. This is not how you run transfer business. And that's just the beginning of my gripe with this transfer window. How have we not signed a player? The big one for me, really, look, we've known Declan Rice has been leaving for, we've known fans definitely like he's going to leave this summer, very likely for 18 months. There's been an agreement in place since at least last summer between Declan Rice and the club that, you know, that we would allow him to move on in this transfer window. So we knew he was going. How we don't have an immediate replacement lined up that we were going to go in and bid for and get a deal done for immediately as soon as Rice was gone is just absolutely baffling. It's astonishing, really, for a Premier League football club to apparently not really know who they wanted to go sign to replace Declan Rice. We didn't even really put bids in early to try and bring in a defensive midfielder. I mean, at the moment, it looks like Moyes' heart seems to be set on Scott McTominay. I'll get into these individual players in a bit. But just to stick to general transfer strategy, if your thinking is you'd love to get in Scott McTominay to replace Rice, what have we been waiting on? What have we been waiting around for? If we know it's McTominay, like, just bid. Put a bid in, test the waters, see what gives. Why we're waiting around until very recently to put a McTominay bid in, I have no idea. It's just a complete shambles. And frankly, it's not good enough. You know, we're going to start the season. Now, I do think we'll have a couple of bodies in by the time the season starts. But at the moment, you'd have to say, best case scenario is that it will be sometime in the coming week. And these players will have maybe a week and a half with the team training. Is that enough pre-season really to get up to speed and to hit the ground running? Maybe so if they're domestic players. But you're still leaving it very late. And we're still going to be in the position we were in last season, where we start the season and we still have quite a bit of our transfer business to do. We still need some players. And the season's already up and running. This is no way to run a football club. And there's absolutely no need of it. And some of the excuses that have been coming out, particularly from Moyes talking about, well, you know, we were off on tour in Australia, so that kind of slowed things down. It's like, really? I mean, I'm sorry, I don't buy that for a second. That is an absolutely piss poor excuse for not signing any players. Number one, if you felt like going to Australia was going to slow down our transfer business, don't go to fucking Australia. If that's the case, clearly David Moyes and David Sullivan and whoever else felt that we could piss around in Australia and not worry about transfers and leave it until they came back and then start trying to make some moves. That's ludicrous. That is no way to run a football club. Did we need to be in Australia? No. Does a pre-season tour need to be even outside of the UK particularly? No, not really. Could have had pre-season games at home. If it would have been much better to do that and get some business done than to be swanning around in Australia. You know, priorities. Okay, I'm going to come back to it, but first of all, we're going to sound off and see who's in the house. We've already know Frano's in. Surreal Frame, how are you, buddy? Even time we're just walking home back in 10 minutes. Yeah, take your time, mate. As long as you've got us on your phone, it's all good. Steve Bell is in. Evening, Steve. Good to see you. Power and Glory says, I think West Ham should think about Xabi Alonso as Moyes' replacement. I don't know if they're thinking about that at the moment, the club. I'd be surprised if they're really thinking about Moyes' replacement at the moment. They've decided to stick with him, so I guess they're going to just wait and see what happens. And if the time comes where they feel like David Moyes is in a bit of trouble again, then perhaps they might start thinking about a replacement. Xabi Alonso, yeah, possibly. I think it'd be worth a punt. Certainly, he knows the Premier League. He knows what it's all about. The league would not be new to him. Very familiar with it, so I wouldn't mind that. That'd be a shout. Alison Street, how are you, Alison? Good to see you. Is Sullivan going for another transfer record, the most rejected bids in the transfer window? Yeah, it's just a complete shit show. It's ludicrous. Simon Lane, how are you, bud? Thanks for joining. Moyes will be gone after 8 games. I'll tell you what, we'll have had a horrific start to the season if that's the case. Jay Bogue says, I think it's crazy we're being linked to McTominay, Maguire. We can't bring in these high level of players as a team. Yeah, I'm going to go through the individual players that we've bid for and the likelihood that we could get them. Steve Bell says, Kamada is available. Look good when we played Frankfurt. Yeah, I really like Kamada. When we played Frankfurt, he was really, really good in that midfield. He was excellent. He's a free transfer. He's 27, so he's not an old player. This is not like a 31-year-old player. On a free transfer, Kamada would absolutely be, a very, very good member of the squad. And look, let's be honest, he's 10 times the player Souček is. If Kamada comes in, the way he'd be showing on the training ground, and probably when he came off the bench, if he didn't start straight away, I think he would force Moyes to pick him. I think he's just a really, really good player. And at 27, he's still in his peak years. So I'd love to see us sign Kamada. Now, look, I know no free transfer is technically free. Yes, we'd have to give him a signing on fee, but it would still be worth it for whatever few million we have to chuck at it to get him in. It would still be cheap for a player of Kamada's quality. But it doesn't seem like he's on David Moyes' radar, that he's interested in him. I think, unless now we've already made contact and we just don't know about it, but at the moment it just doesn't seem like it's something Moyes is interested in. Fornals says, he's old for that money. We better get that kid from Ajax, Alvarez. Jesus, Moyes and his bids. We could make a TV show out of it. Yeah. Can you imagine if the what's that Amazon show, All or Nothing or whatever is in? Can you imagine that at West Ham? How they haven't done West Ham on that yet, I'll never know, because we're an absolute fucking soap opera. 20 million from Maguire. Yeah, I'm gonna get to that too. It's a fucking joke. Hope we get JW and Alvarez or Fofana. Yes, my preferred pairing would be Alvarez and Fofana. I think that would be really, really good. I think it would give us really good balance in the midfield. We'd have our defensive midfielder in Alvarez. We'd have our box-to-box midfielder in Fofana. And then we'd have our creative playmaker in Paqueta. So I think that would be really well balanced. JWP, for me, not as good as Fofana, but still a massive upgrade on Souček. But I'm going to get to that too. He's not 35 to 40 million pound player, says Ken Leach. He's 29 in November. Yeah, he's no spring chicken, but he's not terribly old. But I just would not be paying 35 to 40 million for him. I'd be worried if we paid any more than 30 million for James Ward-Prowse. I think at 30 million, it would be value for money. Given he's 28, turning 29, we'd still get at least three kind of really good seasons out of him. So that would be kind of worth it, I think, at that point. Steve Bell says, Tommy, it's so the board can say they tried. Yeah, it's a strange one because the board spent last summer. To be fair, I criticise the board a hell of a lot, and justifiably so, in my opinion. But they spent a lot of money last summer. They did splash out. They did back Moyes massively in the transfer window last summer. Got the players he wanted largely. Missed out on a couple. Onana obviously went to Everton, but he was heavily backed. And to think we spent all that money to be in a relegation scrap all season is ridiculous. But he was backed by the board, so I don't. So it is a strange one that we're lowballing so much and we're kind of dithering so much. I think a lot of that is to do with Moyes. Now, how much Moyes has a say in how much we bid, I honestly don't know. I don't know how that dynamic works. How much we decide to bid for a player. Is that all Sullivan or what? I'm not sure. But we will spend and we will get some players in. The question is, who are they going to be, and are we going to overpay for them? Because I think if we're going to be buying players from the other Premier League clubs, it looks almost certain that we will have to pay top dollar for them, money they're probably not worth, which is a problem. Just bid 25 to 27.5. Says Jamie. Simon Lane says, I sit near Sullivan, so I'll be wearing a hat next home game. Yeah. And why is Borges taking weeks and weeks to complete def or something not right? I think with Borges, I think the issue, apparently anyway, is the fine print as regards to the resale value of Borges. So, as you know, Man City, whenever they sell a youngster, they put in a buyback clause, and I suspect it's the nature of that buyback clause that's holding up the deal. I'm not sure why. Maybe we feel like it's a bit of a lowball fee for them to buy him back. But to be honest, if we can get a buyback clause in there, even of 35 million, and I think anything 35 and above as a buyback clause, I think is worth going for, because we can't. The only way we could lose is if he turns out to be just an unbelievable player. And then we have to sell him back to them for 35 or 40 million, whereas realistically, he's worth 60 or 70. So maybe we lose out a bit that way. But on the plus side, we'll have only paid 14 for him and we'll still make a very nice, tidy profit. And we'll have had a brilliant player for a couple of seasons. But I'm not too worried about the buyback, because very often those buyback clauses are not triggered by the parent club. Especially when you think it's Man City. So for Man City to want to bring him back to the Etihad, to pay us to get him back, he would have to do something fairly special. Lavia was, excuse me, Lavia was fantastic for Southampton. I mean, just absolutely brilliant. But Man City just have no interest in buying him back. They have a buyback clause there for Lavia. They've just decided not to trigger that, and he did so well last season. So. I think that's what's holding up, but I do think the deal will be done. I'm not actually worried about the Borges deal. I suspect over the next few days, it could be tomorrow, who knows? But certainly, I think over the next few days, he'll sign as a West Ham player. It'll be interesting to see how he does next season. It's a good signing for us. That I didn't really know anything about Carlos Borges before he was linked to us, before Fabrizio kind of spilled the beans on the deal. But having looked into him, he looks a huge talent, and there won't be too much pressure on him when he comes in, because I think Ben Rama will very likely still start in the left midfield role. But if he's not getting it done, or if Borges, is getting his minutes off the bench and is absolutely tearing it up, he could come in then and could end up being an absolutely top class player for us. So this is a really, really good deal. And let's be honest, if the fee is 14 million, it's peanuts. In Premier League terms, it's a punt well worth taking. Even if he turned out not to be as brilliant as we hoped, we could sell him on, probably get 10 million of that back. So, it's very much worth the punt for such a talented youngster. It'd be interesting to know who identified him. Certainly, I don't think it was Stidham. I don't think he would have been very aware of him. It smells more like Rob Newman to me. Rob Newman, has an intimate knowledge of Man City, and he probably still has very close links to some people at City. And I think perhaps Rob Newman maybe flagged him to David Moyes. That would be my guess. But yeah, I think that'll get done very soon. And I think it's a no-brainer deal. It's kind of a win-win. We can't really lose unless he turns out to be like, Vinicius Jr. or something, and we have to sell him back to City on the cheap. But we'll still make a profit, and we'll still have had a brilliant player for a couple of seasons. Sorry, that's a response. So Pollard said, board and manager have no vision. When have they ever? Vinay says West Ham should try for a one-season loan for Ward-Prowse. Could suit everyone. It would suit everyone except Southampton. They're not going to loan him. There's nothing in it for Southampton in loaning Ward-Prowse. And I don't think Southampton particularly care if he stays. I think they'd be quite happy for him to stay. He's the club captain. Came through their academy, didn't he, Ward-Prowse? He's been Southampton all his life, so since he was a kid. So, and I don't, frankly, I don't think James Ward-Prowse would actually lose any sleep if it didn't pan out or any move panned out and he remained at Southampton. I'll be honest with you, actually. I'm a little bit surprised that Ward-Prowse is actually willing to leave Southampton just to join a Premier League team. And I'll tell you why. I know the obvious thing to say as well, Championship going to a team in the Premier League or in Europe is a no-brainer. And of course, you're correct. And that would be the case with almost every player. It's just, I remember that when we did show an interest in him previously, and I think other couple of other clubs did too, he let it be known in no uncertain terms that he had no interest in leaving Southampton because him and his wife and his children loved living down in the Southampton area. They love where they live. The kids are very happy in school and love where they live, and that they were just so settled and so happy there. And he's a Southampton fan. He's a Southampton boy. Came through their academy. So I'm actually a bit surprised that just because he got relegated, that all of a sudden now he's like, yeah, I'm willing to leave now. I really expected Ward-Prowse to say immediately after relegation, particularly as a club captain. I thought he was going to come out and say, you know what, look, I'm going to stay here next season because I want to get us back up to the Premier League time at the Premier League at the first time of asking. So I'm a little surprised that all of a sudden now he's ready to leave and go back to the Premier League with a different club. It doesn't quite, I don't know, it doesn't quite tally up with me. I'm not sure why he's suddenly willing to leave. Like, obviously his wages have probably halved, but still, I mean, I thought he'd give it one season to try and get them back up to the Premier League, especially given that he loves the club. There's no doubt in that. Excuse me. And he loves where he lives. His wife and kids love where they live. It's surprising me a little bit that he's eager to leave Southampton. So, but look, that's his call. It is what it is. Obviously, he's had a chat with his wife, and I don't know how old his kids are. Maybe he spoke to them about it too, and they decided that if West Ham come in and the deal could be done, that he would move. I guess he'll be traveling up. Will he be traveling up and down to Southampton? If he's playing for West Ham. I mean, I don't know. But look, that's for him and his family to decide. Fornals says, Moyes up in December. Here we go. Yeah, look, anything could happen next season. Anything whatsoever. All the rumours I've read on players West Ham are interested in bringing in must be fake. They never do happen or are spoken of. Well, look, I would say the majority of transfer rumours are fake. They're just made up. So I take no notice of them, to be honest. Some of them are kind of just rehashed. They're just kind of older links. You know, like En-Nesyri came up again. He comes up every bloody transfer window in En-Nesyri, but I think that ship has sailed. I don't think Moyes is interested in En-Nesyri anymore. But you still get linked to him every bloody window, and there's a few of them like that. So I take them, almost all of them, with a pinch of salt. Some of them obviously are more realistic than others and more believable than others. Like I always believed the James Ward-Prowse one. I always believed the Gallagher one, the McTominay one, the Maguire one, because they have David Moyes written all over them. So those ones are believable. A lot of the others have not been. Steve Dillon in the house. I'm good, mate. Hope you are too. Ian Smith, no excuse because Zoom exists. Yeah, well, this is the Australia question, right? That's exactly what I was thinking myself, to be honest. I'm thinking, make a Zoom call. You know, Tim Steiden's there, Sullivan's there, Noble's there. Or no, maybe Noble was in Australia. I'm not sure. But, the rest of them are there. And make a phone call, make a Zoom call, talk about transfer strategy. You can do that every day, easily. You can spare half an hour to have a talk about it. It's an absolute excuse, and a very poor one at that, to say that we didn't do any transfer business because we were at a pre-season tour in Oz. Look, other teams are out in foreign countries having their pre-season tours and they're signing players. It's a really poor excuse. It just doesn't wash. I don't think any fan took that seriously. Seabolds, haven't you heard tell me they've not got any mobile networks in Australia? Greg Lane says it's the Shambles. I wonder if Noble regrets his circus comment. Yeah, I don't know if he even remembers he said it. Yeah, Greg could come back to bite him. Andrew Bolton says, imagine if you ran a production company like West Ham is. It all seems matter of fact. Yeah. It's hard to wrap your head around, isn't it, the way we do our transfer business? Southampton want 40, we offer 17, so it's fine. Yeah, it's a joke. 17 minutes plus 3 on Eddins for James Ward-Prowse, 20 minutes for Maguire. Steiden not getting a look in on transfers. It's a circus again. Yeah, I just don't know what the strategy is, really. I mean, between like Steiden and Moyes think completely differently about the game and about how to do transfer business and what kind of targets you should be going after. I mean, they're chalk and cheese. I mean, I just don't know how this is going to work. Which would be even further. Tommy, this club needs your counsel. It's bad decision after bad decision. They certainly won't be listening to me. Wouldn't you love it, though? As a fan, wouldn't you love, just for one summer, like, to be given the reins? Say, look, here's a transfer kitty. Go and sign us some players, and then you have your chat with the manager or director of football, and you kind of identify these players that run. I won't lie, Alex Scott would already be a hammer. I swear to God, Alex Scott would already be playing for us. I'd be putting him in where Souček is. I think he'd be the box-to-box guy. For me, Alex Scott, I think he's absolutely fucking brilliant. He's 19 years old. His ceiling is so high. I'd have been all over Alex Scott immediately. I heard Souček is captain after his contract agreement. That's what the rumor that's doing the rounds. Funnily enough, I was watching Claret and Booze, I think last week sometime, and they were talking about the captaincy, and it's strange that no one's been appointed captain yet, which suggested that perhaps Moyes was hoping to get someone like Maguire in and make him captain. But the rumour now, of course, is that the captaincy would go to Souček. And if the captaincy goes to Souček, you would have to imagine that means that Moyes intends for him to be starting for us in midfield again next season. Because you can't make someone a club captain if you don't think they're going to play. If Moyes had it in his head that he needs to upgrade the midfield, that he needs to replace Moyes with a DM, Rice with a DM, and then get another box-to-box midfielder to play alongside Hill and Paqueta, you wouldn't make Souček captain. It would make no sense. Your captain needs to be on the pitch. So it's a bizarre one. I hope it's not true, because it means that Souček is still David Moyes' number one guy in midfield. That's depressing. Usual suspect evening. 50 pence. Great UK rapper name. Love it. Moyes is making a point about Australia. He doesn't like pre-season so far away. Also, Spurs went to Australia and further. They've done a lot of business. Yeah, it's a horrible excuse, which I don't think it flies with any fan that we haven't signed a single player by the 28th of July. We know the money's there, but all this faffing about is just ridiculous. We even faff about with players that we already know don't want to come. Like Gallagher. Like the talk, we put in the bid for Gallagher, and Gallagher has said that he doesn't wish to leave Chelsea. He wants to stay there and fight for his place. They've got a new manager in Pochettino. He's obviously had a chat with Pochettino about his future at Chelsea and said that he'd like to stay and fight for his place. And is it worthwhile for him to do that? Is there a possibility that, they'd be given a fair crack of the whip to try and, earn his place in the team? And Pochettino has obviously given him some kind of a positive response. Probably likes that the player has shown some character and that he believes he can stay and force his way into the team. And then apparently the rumor is that we're still going to come in with a bigger offer to try and change that scenario. I don't know if it's true, because I don't want to slate people for things that may not be true. But if that's true, that's a fucking joke. That's a complete joke. At that point, you just wash your hands of it. And here's the other thing I don't get. We spend all this time talking about Gallagher. Do we want to go in for Gallagher? Is he someone we'd like to sign? And then we kind of faff about and make a bid. Could we not have made a phone call? Could we not have made a phone call to somebody to say, call Chelsea first and say, look, are you willing to sell Conor Gallagher? And if so, what's your valuation of the player? Now, Chelsea will either say, no, we're no interest in selling him, in which case you walk away. Or they say, yes, we'd be willing to listen to an offer, but it would have to be in this region. And then you can go back and have your another chat and say, okay, can we speak to Conor Gallagher's representatives to find out if he'd actually be interested in joining us? And then you do that, and he might say, look, very flattered, but my intention is to stay here at Chelsea and fight for my place. So I don't want to move at this time. How long should that take? A day, maybe two, to find all that out? Day or two to know where you stand on Conor Gallagher or McTominay or Maguire, get their feelings on it, get the club's feelings on it. Same with Southampton, James Ward-Prowse. Put the feelers out there, see what the story is. Why we waste so much time on players that it turns out actually we never had a chance of signing is beyond me. I just can't understand why we do things the way we do. It's an incredibly ponderous way of doing your transfer business. Incredibly ponderous. It's hard for me to wrap my head around that level of ineptitude. WettyFat95 says, do you think Sullivan Co are lowballing Moyes targets on purpose? I can't believe these kinds of questions are even being considered. It's hard to know, isn't it? It's hard to know. And I know it sounds like a bit of a conspiracy theory, and they're probably not doing it for that reason, but it's hard to discount it completely when you look at how low that offer was. I mean, the same apparently has happened with Maguire. I think Man United value him around the same as McTominay, is it? Is the value around the 40 or 45 million pounds? Why would you go in with an offer of 20? On what planet do you think that's going to break the ice? If a player is valued at 40 million by the club, at least come in with a reasonable offer. Let's say Gallagher, they value him at 40. Come in and say, look, give, 30 million and 5 in add-ons. Brings the deal up to 35 million. It's a decent offer. Okay, they might reject it. But at least you're showing you're serious and that you want this player and that you're not going to try to really scrimp on it. If you're offering like peanuts for a player, if you're offering half or less than half what the player is valued at, I mean, you're just burning bridges. You're just making people think that you're not serious, that you're trying to pull their pants down. I just don't understand it. It's a crazy way of doing business. Right, let's get back to the chat. Ken says JWP plus Maguire are most targets, so Sully is put in low bids with no real view of signing. Again, don't know, but it does make you wonder when the bids are so derisory. Hammers Mikey, how are you, bud? Even Tommy, don't read up anyone. Borges have been injured for 2 weeks now. Yeah, that's really been dragging on. Even to allow for some haggling about the buyback clause, it's still dragging on a long time. Would it surprise you if it fell through because we weren't happy with the resale fee, with the buyback fee? Would it really surprise anyone? That would just be, if that one falls through as well, I mean, it's just going to be absolutely fucking depressing. Absolutely fucking depressing. Pigads, have any new coaches signed? No. And Moyes has said he hopes that we can have at least one in time for the Bournemouth game. Hopes we'll have at least one coach in by the time we play Bournemouth and the season kicks off. Welcome to West Ham. The fucking circus. Absolutely ridiculous. 30 million they've had us off. 30 million. Is this Prowse? James Ward-Prowse? 30 million. For me, 30 million would be top dollar for Prowse. I would not go any more. I know they value him at 40. I'd go in if 30 is our max. I would just say it to them, a verbal offer. Say, look, 30 million is as high as we can go because we have a limited budget and we have other players that we want to sign. It's not that we want to mess about. It's just that's kind of what we can budget for that particular transfer and see if they will bite. And if they won't bite, they might come back with a counter offer and say, okay, what about 30 and, like 5 in add-ons, which will bring it up to 35. We could maybe do 35. And you might be able to get something done, if the add-ons are reasonable. I'll just fly through these and then I will bring James in. Our recruitment system seems to be very poor. It's a shame. Yeah, it's poor because of the players that Moyes wants in the door. It's a shit show. James, how are you doing, mate?
Not too good, mate. Where are these signings, people?
Yeah, obviously you've been kind of busy. You probably haven't heard anything I've said up to this point, but it's been all about the transfer strategy. And the latest thing are these ridiculously low ball offers for James Ward-Prowse and apparently for Maguire, who we apparently bid 20 million King's pounds for. And then 17 plus 3 in add-ons for James Ward-Prowse. Both of their clubs value these players at 40 million. Now, there may be a deal to be done, but to go in that low makes it look like we're not a serious club.
We're not, mate. We're not. No, let's be honest. 20 million for Maguire. Listen, I'm not a fan of Maguire, yeah? I look at other players we could go and find who are younger, with a better sell-on value than him, yeah? I understand the hype with him. He comes in, he makes our back line a lot stronger, right? A lot stronger, yeah? But we have to look long-term, and for me, West Ham ain't looking long-term, right? They're just low-balling, because I don't think they want to sign anyone, by the looks of it. Right? How long has Borges been waiting for us? 8 days now. It was announced last Thursday from Fabrizio that it was going to get done, and it took 8 days to get this deal done, and it still hasn't been finished yet. We've got a lot of problems at West Ham, we really have.
Yeah, it's a bizarre, really. That's a strange one, the Borges one. Even if you were having to negotiate the buyback fee, or some other details, I mean, it really shouldn't take this long.
It shouldn't, mate. It shouldn't. If you're a serious club, right, and this is the thing that does me, and I've been having a few debates on the channel, yeah, and this is West Ham's best moment. Just won a trophy. We're in Europe. Like, we can't even attract players to come to West Ham. And for me, you're between a rock and a hard place with Moyes. Yeah, on the one hand, he's here. On the other hand, he wants to do it his way. Now, it's giving him a lot of money to spend on players like Scott McTominay, who I see people saying, how he come in and make us better. There's a lot of other players who can make us a lot better. Do you know what I'm saying? Not just him. And I don't think he's all that, like, for £40 million. Joke, really. But it's West Ham, mate, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, Look, it's not that I think any of them are shit players. I don't think James Ward-Prowse is shit. I don't. I think he's a very decent Premier League midfielder. I think McTominay. I quite like McTominay actually. I think he's a very decent player. I think a lot of his problem at Man United is that they haven't played him correctly. Funnily enough, they play him more of a sitting kind of a DM generally. But when you watch him playing for Scotland, they give him a lot more freedom to be a box-to-box midfielder, and he actually plays a lot better for Scotland than he does for Man United.
But the
So
only
if
problem with that,
so,
he gets booked a lot though, Tommy, and he doesn't complete a season. Like if you look at his stats, yeah. Someone said it to me the other day, yeah. A Man United fan said, "Yeah, he's all right, McTominay, but he doesn't complete the season, and he loves to get suspended in games." Like, do you know what I'm saying? Is he worth the risk at 40 million? Not for me.
oh no, not at 40 million. I think
Yeah,
absolutely not. I would never pay 40 million for McTominay. I just wouldn't do it. It's completely overpriced.
yeah.
So I think we should have, as soon as we heard the number 40 million, we should have just dropped that immediately and just say, oh, fucking forget about it. It's not happening. The same with James Ward-Prowse. I mean, look, the prices, we've done it ourselves. The prices that teams are slapping on their players.
Yeah.
They want to get top dollar for them. James Ward-Prowse is nowhere near a 40 million pound midfielder. You know, we shouldn't be even entertaining that. You know, immediately, like, put in a decent offer if you really want him. See, I think this is where we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. I suspect that people like Sullivan and Stidham are looking at these players like McTominay and Price, it's McTominay and James Ward-Prowse, and they know in their heart and souls these are not fucking 40 million pound players.
100%.
And I think they don't want to pay that kind of money for these players. I don't think Sullivan wants to pay that kind of money for them. I don't think Stidham wants us to pay that kind of money for him. We don't have that much money to burn. And I think they're caught between a rock and a hard place because Moyes wants them. And so on the one hand, you want to try and back your manager as best you can. If he wants players, you want to try and get the players he wants if you can. But on the other hand, they're completely overpriced. And so it's kind of pick your poison, right? It's like we either completely overpay for these players to keep him happy, or we don't sign them because they're too overpriced and we're not willing to go that high, and Moyes gets the fucking hump. And then blames us if it goes tits up next season because, well, I didn't get the players I wanted.
Yeah, but the problem is with that is, right, do you invest your money in players that really have no sell-on value? Like, if you go and put these, sign these players, that Ward-Prowse for me, 25, probably max 30, okay, I could sort of swallow that because he does give you goals. Like, he gives you goals, he gives you assists, he can do that sort of stuff. Don't like it, but I can accept that. McTominay for 40 is a no-go for me. I just think he's massively overrated. I think there's better players than him out there. Right, people, put this into perspective right now. Arabat, who we all see against us in the final, is £30 million. And Manchester United are going to try and get rid of Scott McTominay for 40 million, being Arabat for 30 million, and Arabat pisses all over Scott McTominay, all over him. Do you know what I'm saying?
And they'd have 10 million quid left burning a hole in their pocket to put somewhere towards another transfer. Imagine,
that's on Moyes,
yeah, that's on Moyes. I mean, we'd be absolute fucking mugs. Absolute fucking mugs to do that. To give.
Agree. I really do.
And the funny thing for me is, Kamada can be had on a free. Now, obviously, no transfer is free. We'd have to give him a transfer, a signing on fee. He might want 5 million signing on fee, and maybe his agent gets a couple of million. Let's say he wants 5 and his agent wants 7 million for Kamada.
Yeah.
Fucking no-brainer. He's way better than McTominay, and he's 10 times the player Souček is. And it's cheap as fuck. He's 27. He's still in his prime.
The problem is, right, and this is the argument that I've had, people say this ain't a scattergun approach. Now, this ain't a scattergun approach, then I don't know what is. I really don't. Like, this is ultimately a scattergun approach because they're just firing bids out everywhere and hoping one of them lands. £20 million for James Ward-Prowse, if he's the man for you, is not a realistic offer. I don't care what anyone says. It's
No.
just not realistic. Yeah, 20 million from Harry Maguire. Now Harry Maguire's the man that you want to sign. You don't drop 20 million. You drop 30 million, right? Because that's the right. You give them a bid to sort of think about it. And this is the argument I had the other week about Paulinho. Yeah, West Ham go and drop 40 million when Fulham want 85, 90 million. Yeah, like you're dropping a serious bid to go. Well, there's 60 million there if you want this man. And the thing is, there's no planning by West Ham. West Ham have known about Declan Rice for the last few years that he's going to be leaving eventually, and to go for people like Scott McTominay, Gallagher, I can sort of accept to a point because he's young, he could like go up to another level, right? But not McTominay, man, not McTominay at all, in my opinion. I think he's massively overhyped, and Manchester United don't get rid of players if they don't think they're good enough. And obviously,
and let's be honest. Would he be any better than Fornals in that position?
Not at all, mate. Not at all. I'd have Fornals in that position all day long. Someone said it to me the other day. They said, let's be honest, what does Scott McTominay do that Souček does also? Like, really? Like, if you had the two of them together and you compared them both, they're pretty similar players, in my opinion. Like, Souček can score goals as many as fucking McTominay. And let's be honest, defensively, they're both bad. So, yeah, it's just not for me, mate. It's just not for me. Like,
yeah, well, obviously, at the moment, McTominay went down with a knee injury, and he's less friendly for Man United. I checked it out today. There's still no word on the severity of it. But I won't lie. I was hoping he was out for a few weeks.
Yeah,
I really was, because there's obviously absolutely no way you can pass a medical. So
the only time
I don't wish injury on players, obviously, you know.
But one thing I will say though, Tommy, the only time all these players are going to become available is the back end of the window, when teams are sort of scratching about. Like if Gallagher could go from Chelsea after Chelsea have played us, Chelsea ain't going to give us a player when they play us the second game in the season. They might give us Gallagher if we put in a decent offer for him, which is going to be blown out the water now. Like West Ham are in turmoil at the minute, and the major restructuring of West Ham is just not good enough.
Yeah, that's not true, Scarborough. That is absolutely not true. Before we put that bid in, it was common knowledge that they valued Paulinho at 80 million. They had said so publicly. We knew that before we made the bid.
Even that 40 million bid's an insult.
It's half what they were looking for. It's a joke. It's the same thing as the Maguire bid. It's the same thing as the fucking Ward-Prowse bid. Half the cost of half the valuation.
Like,
the club. Those are not serious bids.
And what it is, Tommy, people were complaining about Arsenal, right? Saying, they're taking the mick. Look at what they've offered us the first bid for Declan Rice. We've done the exact same to Fulham. Lowballed it in a way to say, you know what, it's going to get rejected. And the thing is, if you're serious about a player, you put a serious bid in. That's not a serious bid, because anyone who thinks we was going to get Paulinho for 40 million, it's just not. It's not from this planet, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the other thing is, like I said earlier in the show before you were on, like of course you negotiate prices for players. You don't just immediately chuck the entire amount of money on the table, but make a serious offer. I mean, where do you go from here? Like, you go to Southampton with 17 plus 3, and then they're like, no, we value him at 40. So what's the club going to do now? Go for double their offer?
25 that goes to.
What's
that
the
goes
point?
To 20. That goes to 25.
Where do you go from there with your second offer? Like,
the problem
if your second offer is going to be like a real one, then why did you lowball the first offer anyway? You knew damn well they weren't taking it or anything near that amount. As a strategy, it just boggles my mind. I don't understand any of this. It's a crazy way to do business.
It's lowball.
I mean, can you imagine, like, at Old Trafford and St. Mary's, the fucking laughter. When that, I don't know if it was a verbal offer over the phone or if it came through, if they email each other or what the fuck happens. Imagine when that came through, and the laughter must have been incredible.
Yeah.
They must have been going around with the sheet of paper going, you won't fucking believe this, mate. Take a look at this.
Yeah, but do you know what's going to happen, don't you? Another team will come in, put a serious bid in, and they will blow West Ham out the water for the players. That's, for instance, if it's James Ward-Prowse, and just for argument's sake, it's chucking a team out there, Brighton, come in for him, yeah, and say, right, well, we'll take him, yeah, because they might be looking for a midfielder if Calcedo goes. Do you know what I'm saying? And they put in a serious bid for him. It automatically the shift turns to the new club rather than us because we've
Yeah.
been wasting time.
Yeah, I
Simple as
mean, a
that.
decent, like a decent first offer in my mind. If they're valuing Ward-Prowse at 40 now, I do think he's overpriced. At that, I wouldn't pay it for him. I think the maximum I pay would be 30. But let's say that's not the view of West Ham. Let's say they might be willing to go to or close to the 40. I think
Yeah.
the first bid, you've got to come in probably 30, offer them 30 million, see what happens. At least it's a jumping off point. At least it's a start and you can test the water.
Yeah.
At least they'll look at 30 million and say, all right, look, 30 million, that's not a bad offer. That's a start. Now, they'll probably reject it and say, no, it's not enough. And then maybe you come back and say, all right, what about 30? And we'll throw in like 5 million in add-ons. And maybe you can get something done. But to come in at 17 plus 3, I mean, where do you go from there? It's a joke. And the same with this £20 million bid. So it suggests to me we're not serious.
No.
That we're not serious. It suggests to me, I have to say at this point, that Sullivan and Steiden just do not want to pay that kind of money for these players. Not for Ward-Prowse, not for McTominay, not for Maguire.
Well, basically, look at it another way, right? We've got 15 days left until the start of the season. And I keep hearing this argument, but the transfer window doesn't shut till the end of August, beginning of September. Yeah? That's all fine, but we play 4 games in then. We've got Bournemouth, Chelsea, Brighton, Luton, right? We need to... I hope you've got the confidence to say that we're going to win some games in there because I've got no faith at the minute, not with our midfield. Like, everyone can say about Souček. Now, whether you like Souček or not, he can't do it on his own. Flynn Downs is a player that I do back up, but is he first team ready right now? I wouldn't trust him to be in their first team, right? And I rely on this geezer. Do you know what I'm saying? And after that, we've got no one. We've got no one else. Yeah. And it's just, it's embarrassing. It really is.
It really is. It's shockingly bad. So, Verge, so would you want JWP? Is it the player or the £40 million price tag is putting you off? A little bit of both, to be honest. From my perspective, he's not a player I particularly want at the club. I think we can sign better. I'd much prefer Fofana, quite frankly. I think he's a really good player. But if we were to sign him, I wouldn't rail in the streets. I do think James Ward-Prowse is a very decent player. Obviously, he's lethal on set pieces. I do think he would bring something to the team. So if we were to sign him at a reasonable price, say if we were to get him for 25 million, even 30 at a push, I could swallow it because I do think he would bring something to the team, particularly if he's brought in as a replacement for Souček. My ideal scenario, if it's going to be James Ward-Prowse, right, would be if we can grab him for about 30 million or thereabouts, and we were actually able to sell Souček and get 20 odd million for him. That I think would be good business. But I'm not particularly enamored by James Ward-Prowse. I do think he's a decent player. I really do. I just think we can sign better, especially at the kind of money that we're talking. I absolutely would not, under any circumstances, personally, pay any more than 30 for him. And I don't particularly want him at the club at all, if I'm honest. James, how do you feel about him, James?
25 and 5 for me. So 25 million, 5 million add-ons for James Ward-Prowse. What you just say about Souček, I'm sorry, Tommy, but I think he's going to be a first teamer this year.
I was hypothetically, I mean,
it's like if West Ham are preparing to offer this geezer a new contract, that says first teamer, possibly captain of the side, which is not very, very good for me, but that's a different story. But West Ham need to get their act together, mate. They need to get their act together sharpish and fast. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Because what people don't understand is, and I see some of the people in the chat, is that not only have we got to bring these players in, they've got to adapt to Moyes' style of play. And that don't happen overnight. Do you know what I'm saying? They've got to learn that over a period of time. And we've got a friendly tomorrow. We've got a friendly next week. And then 2 weeks, basically tomorrow, is when the season starts. So West Ham got to get their act together, right? Listen, we're not scouts, right? But they should know who they're targeting and who they're seriously after. How can you go from Paulinho to Scott McTominay and then just filter all the way through to sort of Gallagher, James Ward-Prowse with no plan? If James Ward-Prowse is your man, you put a serious bid in, you get the man. Yeah, like obviously not 40 million, but if you can get him for say 30 million, then it's a good deal. But just go and insult him with a 17-3, it's just a joke. It's just a joke. But that's just West Ham in general at the minute. They just can't get nothing fucking right in the transfer market.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Because at some point, we're going to have to give up on this shit because, Gallagher's over. That's not happening. He doesn't want to leave Chelsea. I don't think Maguire has any interest whatsoever in leaving Man United to come and play for West Ham. I just don't believe he's got any intention of it. So I do not see that happening whatsoever. I think even if we were to offer United kind of money they want for him, I still think he would turn us down like Gallagher did.
100%.
I think someone like, whatever people think about Maguire, in his head, he's an England international who plays for Man United. I think if he's going to move, he's going to want to move to another very kind of big club. He's going to want to continue playing Champions League football. He'll want to play in Champions League. I think he will feel like he can get a move to another big club. Maybe not a super club, but someone who's in and about it. I don't think I think he'll feel like going to West Ham is too much of a downward step for him. I don't think his ego will allow it. I think he'd find it a little bit embarrassing, that Man United haven't paid 80 million for him, that now, he's ended up at West Ham, and he might see that as a bit of a career failure. Yeah. And I don't think he'll want it to look like that, like he's had any kind of a major failure in his career. So I don't think he has any intention of coming to West Ham. So I don't think it matters what we give or offer for Maguire.
Listen, we've been linked with a young under 23, I think he is, under 21 England international. Yeah, in was it Harwood Bellis? Yeah, Manchester City's player. Yeah, I was up in Burnley a few weeks ago, and they rave about that kid massively. They think he's a really, really good player. They want to try and get him back there. They think he won't be at City because I think City's too big for him. Yeah, and he needs to go to another club. He'd be an ideal player to bring in for West Ham. You could bring him in. You could use him in Europa League. You could nurture him over a period of time, and you've got a possible player who could go on to do big things. I don't know what the plan is with West Ham at the minute. I really don't. And as I say, 15 days to go. Yeah, it's not looking good, like at all. Like, and what it is, like, we shouldn't be having to divulge into the free transfer market to sort of get signings. Do you know what I'm saying? We shouldn't have to do that. Not when we just sold Deck. Yeah, we should have players already here. Like, we should have at least one signing here, and we've got none, which is not good at all.
No, and I think this is the same old. We seem to get every season where we spend so much time faffing about over transfers that don't really have any real prospect of actually happening.
Yeah.
And then we end up just making these late signings, signings late in the window when we've already kicked off the season. And now we've got players. We'll end up just signing players from abroad anyway, at the end of all this. So we'll end up doing what Moyes didn't want to do anyway, which is sign players from the continent. And then we're going to be back in the same fucking boat. We'll be down near the bottom of the fucking table at Christmas, and he'll be talking about how, it's just taking time to integrate new players in from sign them early in the fucking window. Get them into pre-season so they're ready to go at the start of the season. Instead of this same fucking excuse year after year. It's crazy.
I thought
he's
excuse.
Crazy. And there's going to be no fucking excuse this time around. I use that excuse. No, I don't accept the excuse anyway, by the way. But a lot of fans have probably given him some leeway on it and said, okay, well, if you think last season we were poor in the league because it took so long for the new players coming in from abroad to integrate into the team in the league, then you have no excuse this time around. Absolutely none. For doing business so late in the window and putting us in exactly the same fucking spot.
Yeah, but did you see that video the other day? Like of him talking about because they've been in Australia
Yeah,
and all
I
that.
talked about
Like
it at the top of the
it,
show. Yeah,
it was just like excuses straight away. It's like you're dropping an excuse in there to sort of justify what's going on, really. And there is no justification. I see someone say it earlier on about Carlos Borges, yeah, and people saying, "Oh, Declan Rice took a month to get done." Declan Rice was 105 million pounds, right? And he was away on holiday and all that. Borges is not on holiday. Do you know what I'm saying? He's still there. All right, he might even be stuck on the A13 for all we know, but he should be here, yeah. And the problem is we've got an owner who's stubborn in his approach, and we've got a manager who likes to do it his own way, and he does not take no advice from no one. It just proves it with the staff members. We have got no staff members at this club, right? So it's worrying times, man. It's worrying times for me, personally.
yeah, it is. And you know the frustration you can see on Twitter. I mean, the frustration with the fan base is absolutely huge now. And look, I'm not one for like panic or anything about the transfer window generally, but I am very frustrated. Look, we will sign players. Remains to be seen who they will be and how much we pay for them. And obviously, we'll all react to the players that do come in. We will sign players. We'll spend the money. But the fact that we're still sitting here on the 28th of July without a single player through the door, we haven't even. Do you see what Moyes said about the coaches?
Yeah, no.
He said he's hoping that we'll at least have one coach in before the Bournemouth game. Hoping. We could go into the Bournemouth game not having replaced Warburton and not having replaced Nevin. Down on coaches. We don't even have coaches signed.
And that's what I'm saying, mate. That's what I'm saying. And let's be honest, yeah, if you had a career choice with going with David Moyes right now, or you go to another club where they can offer you a longer contract where he could be there for the duration of that contract, you're going to go elsewhere. You're not going to come to West Ham. Because let's be honest, as we've always said, and me and you have spoke about this quite strongly, if he starts off slow and we end up uphill and we've got to try and fight to stay in this league this season, and people think we're going to have a good season, well, we're not going to have a good season right now, not the way I look at it, not with no midfield as it is. Do you know what I'm saying? Moyes will be out of a job by October. He can't have this. You can't have excuses already lined up for lack of transfers when you've known Declan Rice was going to be leaving for the last 6 months. You're right. As soon as June the 8th happened, day after the cup final, yeah, which we just won, our owner come out and turned around and said that we are looking at selling Declan Rice. A plan should be in place then to sign players. Yeah, this is the man that we're going to go for. Now, whether that was Paulinho, right? You go out there, you stamp that, and you go, right, that's the man we're going to get. We're going to make sure that we get him. Yeah, obviously not pay over the odds for him, but go and get him with a serious bid. Have any of our bids been serious in this summer window? Really?
No.
None, really. So that just says it all to me. And they're all in different directions at the minute. And once they go in the right direction, we might actually start looking a bit positive this season.
Yeah, it's just hard to believe we're putting ourselves in this position again.
Yeah,
you know, you think lessons would be learned, and they just haven't. And it's astonishing that on the 28th of July we haven't got a single player in the door, and it's hard to wrap your head around it, really. So where we go from here, I don't know. It's looking like we're going to have to turn our attention to the continent. We could end up, with Alvarez and Fofana. So it might kind of work out in the end, as it were. But the way we're going about it, you just wonder, wouldn't you love to just... I want to be a fly on the wall at West Ham and just hear the conversations that go on. Because I want to try and understand how it goes, how it happens this way. Because I don't think and now there are some fans who are very cool about it and like, look, don't worry about it, and they're fine with it. And I get that. Not every fan is as frustrated as us. Not every fan is getting a bit pissed off with the whole thing. Some fans are very relaxed and calm about it, and that's fine. But I would say the majority of the fan base can't wrap their head around this and don't understand why we keep doing business this way.
Right? The people who are calm right now, they won't be if we lose against Bournemouth. They won't be if we lose against Luton, right? And if we're bottom of the league and they're still calm about it, then I need to know what they're doing with their life. Because once West Ham have their first 6 games, Bournemouth, Chelsea at home, yeah, Brighton away, Luton away, City and Liverpool, yeah, that's not a good start. And if you know you've had that fixture list since June, right, and you've known that they are the fixtures, we should be prepared for this, and we're not. And that is the problem. Now, on the other hand, West Ham could start off and could surprise us all. But do you realistically look at it and think West Ham are going to surprise us? Because I don't. Do you know what I'm saying? Not with no midfield. Like, if you're relying on Soucek and Downs to come in and do a job, yeah, they shouldn't have to do a job. We should have players here ready to go, yeah. And if we do, just for argument's sake, we go and sign players this time next week, yeah. So this time next Friday, we're signing players before our last pre-season game. They ain't going to play against Bournemouth because they ain't going to be. They might not even be match ready. So that their next real game will be Chelsea at home, which they're going to be thrown in at the deep end, which is it's just not right. I can see someone saying in your chat about Sullivan should hire us. He should hire us because I'll tell you something now. I'll be in there saying, right, we need to go and find out youngsters and people who are going to develop West Ham over a long period of time, like the Red Bull model, and not this model where we're just going to buy aging players just to like keep it sustained for now. Because where is the 5-year plan? There is none. It's just, I will just do it for now, which is not good enough at the end of the day. West Ham are a big club, big team, yeah, and this is what it's about, yeah. And we support West Ham through thick and thin, but we've seen the good times, and we want to contain that good times and maintain it, yeah. And signing these players who are over the hill and overpriced is just not the way forward. Sign younger players, and I have this argument all the time, yeah. Arsenal. People keep saying to me, look at Arsenal, look, like they could possibly win the league this year. Look at all the young players they're signing. If it's good enough for Arsenal to sign young players and develop, why ain't it good enough for West Ham? It just like their arguments just terrible at the end of the day.
Yeah. James is obviously here. James Joe, one of the people I mentioned earlier, just not bothered. Doesn't care who we sign, doesn't care what we pay for them. This argument of it's not your money, what's that got to do with it? We care about the future of West Ham. We care about the club. And I'm sorry, but we will not progress as a club if we're overpaying for players who are not going to do as good a job as the money suggests they should do. And certainly there's no need to get personal, James, saying I need to get laid before the programme. And if you get personal like that with me again, I'll block you. Don't be a fucking prick. If you've got a point to make your point and do it properly. I don't care if you disagree with me, but you get personal with me like that again, you will be fucking blocked. And you're lucky you're not in the fucking room with me. Don't make a fucking comment like that to me again, you fucking prick. Now, we've lost James for a bit. So hopefully he'll be back very quickly. Probably needs to go and put some more money in his meter. All right, I'm going to go back in the chat a bit. Jonathan Boyce, it's a win-win, boys. We have a bad start, Moyes goes. If we have a good start, then we'll be okay. Yeah, I get that. Fair enough. I get that. A bad start and he goes. But you see, this is the thing, James. Do you think he would go? Because if we have a slow start, and let's say, first 5 or 6 games don't go well, Moyes will make the excuses. Well, we haven't hit the ground running, but we've just signed players that we just need to get them integrated, into the team, and then things will improve and stuff. Because there were numerous times when Sullivan last season really could have sacked him.
Yeah,
really should have sacked him, and he didn't do it at any stage. So I don't know if I'm convinced if a slow start would even get him sacked. Do you think he's on that short leash now, or do you think the fact that he's been backed that he could survive the entire first half of the season with us struggling?
I don't think so, mate. I really don't. I think by the end of October, if West Ham are fighting in a relegation battle, if you look at the first 6 games, they're tough. People might think we're just going to turn up at Bournemouth and Luton and just win them games. Bournemouth have a new manager, so they're going to be on it. And Luton's first home game in the Premier League, and we all know that's going to feel like. Luton are going to be massively up for that, and if we're off it, we ain't getting nothing there. I think if we start slow and it goes the way it goes, the conference final and what he done last season will be a distant memory, especially if we're fighting to stay in the league. Now, do I think West Ham are going to get relegated? No, but I'm nervous about this season. I really am, because we don't even know who the captain's going to be, and it just feels very. It just feels like fractured at West Ham for some crazy reason. Now, we can say this, we can talk right now, 15 days out, and things might change in a few weeks. We might sign 3 or 4 players, and we might be a bit more optimistic. But right now, I'm very, very nervous, and I don't think he lasts. But the back end of October, if I'm honest, if West Ham go the way they go, which I think they could go, it might be a struggle, big time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, look, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what players will be in before the Bournemouth game, but just to talk about the squad that we have at the moment, if we were to go into next season, say the Bournemouth game, with this current squad, I mean, we still have a good first 11, I think, out on the pitch. If we can get Scamacca up top, get him going, our first 11 would still be kind of a decent enough starting 11. But the problem is it's the same starting 11 with the same manager that really struggled last season. And the first half of the season, particularly, we were absolutely horrific, horrific. And there's no reason to think that Moyes will change the way we set up or the way we play. I don't see that happening, especially if we're basically largely have the same players, because he tried that with this group of players last season. It didn't work, and he had to revert back to the way he normally plays.
Yeah.
So you'd have to worry, really, if we don't improve the starting 11 before we reach that Bournemouth game.
It is, mate. It is. Like, I don't know. I just don't know with it, really. Because if you was to pick your starting midfield for Bournemouth, who would you choose? Because for me, there is only 2 players that we've got in there. Now, you can chuck Fornals in there. I think Fornals in a 3-man midfield wouldn't be a bad shout. I've always said that. I like him as an industrial midfielder. I think he could do a lot of damage from deep and find them passes over the top for Bowen and Cornet.
You'd have to play Downs, wouldn't you?
You'd have to. You'd have no choice, because he's the only real person who is like a proper defensive midfielder. Like, he's not an attacking.
You'd have to play, Downs, Paqueta, Fornals.
Yeah, maybe that. Or
listen,
Suchek.
Bournemouth are doing business. Bournemouth are doing business, James. They're making some tidy signings.
And they've got a manager that is going to want to impress on his first game. So, listen, and this is a question to everyone in the chat. How many points do you see from the first 6 games? Because I only really see 4 at best, if I'm being honest. Now, the first 6 games, as I said, Bournemouth, Chelsea, Brighton away, Luton away, Man City and Liverpool. Like,
isn't that going to be Luton's first home game of the season?
Correct.
They're going to be absolutely fucking buzzing for that. Yeah,
and whatever happens with them away from home is irrelevant. Them at home are a different kettle of fish. Yeah, like they're a completely different side at home to what they are away from home. They will have all the crowd behind them. They will make it hostile. And if we're not on it, and that's a Friday night kickoff at 8:00, by the way, so even better, right? So
under the lights,
under the lights and all. So we've got everything going against us there. So I think it's a tough start, and we're just not ready. We're just not ready for it. Now, if West Ham can surprise you, they could play Chelsea and probably nick something out of that game. But then what West Ham nick from Chelsea, they could easily give away at Bournemouth or Luton. It's just the West Ham way.
Yeah, those first 6 games are actually going to be huge. We need to have, a reasonable start to the season. You'll give us some kind of platform to push on, because obviously, look, we're going to have Europa League group games coming as well, thick and fast. So we're going to have to hit the ground running. We're going to have to be
our first Europa League game is in between the Man City game. So we had the first game, and then we had Manchester City at home on Saturday, I think, or Sunday.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't get any easier. So
I know, mate.
Yeah, it's a real worry. But what do you just gut feeling? Obviously, none of us know, but how many players do you think we'll have in the door by the time we play Bournemouth? Because that's creeping closer and closer. It's what is it now? Is it 3 weeks away?
15 days.
15 days. Not even. Sorry, just I mean 2 weeks away. So
Yeah.
the way things are going, I mean, if we're going to go back in with bids for, say, Ward-Prowse and for Maguire and stuff, I mean, given our starting point, that looks like it's going to just drag and drag as well, even if we end up getting both of them. Now, McTominay is completely up in the air now. We're hanging around, waiting to see if McTominay is even going to be injury-free anytime in the next, before the window closes.
I think Borges will get done. I think that will get done within the next
I think so too in the next few days.
Next sort of 3 to 4 days. I think that'll get done. I think James Ward-Prowse will get done. I think he wants to come to West Ham. I think he's a sort of player that will be handy for us, especially the style of play we play. And I think West Ham will put in a decent offer and make sure that they get the man. After that, I don't see anyone before Bournemouth, if I'm being real. I just don't. Because like you just said, and you are right, if we're putting bids in for players and it's taking weeks to get a deal over the line, then it's going to be even worse when the season starts because teams are going to be playing and everything. So I think we get two players in, Borges and Ward-Prowse, Bournemouth, which isn't really good enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a bit underwhelming. Look, I know there's people that really like Ward-Prowse. There's people that really like McTominay, which I get. That's fine. I think they're both, decent enough Premier League midfielders, but just not at the prices that are being. We're fucking mugs if we pay the money that these clubs want for these players. It's any English player you buy, really. Maybe with the exception of some Championship players, you can probably get some good Championship players at reasonable enough prices. I think Alex Scott is a no-brainer at 25 million.
Yeah.
I don't know why we're not all over that. But Wolves have been trying to sign him, but they got no fucking money.
I know. Wolves are in trouble. Wolves are in trouble, mate. And obviously, I don't know whether you spoke about the Cresswell thing.
No, that was why I was going to segue to that. Go on, you may as well kick it off, mate.
Well, is it a rumour or is it fact that he's sort of refused to train and obviously go to France, basically? In your opinion, Tommy? Because I honestly don't know. I'll be quite shocked if he has sort of down tools a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't think that would be in his sort of nature to do that. Do you know what I'm saying? But he obviously doesn't want to be at West Ham now. Like, he wants to leave. So there's definitely a problem there.
Yeah, I'd be taking that with a pinch of salt myself. I don't think we're unwilling to sell him. I think Wolves are skint. I think Wolves have. I don't think we've slapped like a big fee on him or anything.
5 million.
Was it 5 million quid? I mean, I don't think Cresswell can have any complaints that we're want to get 5 million fucking measly quid for him. It's not our fault Wolves don't have any fucking money. Surely they could stump up 5 million quid if they really wanted him. I think they've just sold or about to sell a player, or they just have sold a player.
Yeah.
So that if they do want Cresswell, that could actually start to move very quickly.
I don't think West Ham can afford to get rid of him, though, Tommy, if I'm honest.
Well, that's just where I was going. I was thinking, we sell him for 5 million quid. We've got to replace him. Now, okay, we don't have to spend a lot of money to replace him necessarily. Actually, in my book, we don't actually particularly need to spend any money to replace him. I'm wondering, I'll tell you what I could live with, James, I'd actually really like to see. If we sell Cresswell, then, Emerson becomes our first choice left back. I like Emerson. I think he's a really decent player. Yeah. I think he's better than Cresswell. And I would love to see Ollie Scarles promoted as the understudy to Emerson, and let him learn from Emerson. Give him a few minutes wherever and whenever you can during the season. Maybe some substitute appearances. If things are going well in Europa League in the group stage, maybe you could make a couple of appearances there in the group stage. Carabao Cup comes around early enough. We get a nice draw on that, small team at home or something like that. Maybe give him a run out there. someone like Scarles to me looks like very talented. I mean, he played in Europe last season out in Bucharest, and I thought he was man of the match. I thought he was absolutely fantastic. So for me, if we sell Cresswell, I'd love to see us go down that route. Now, I know it's not something Moyes tends to do.
Yeah.
He doesn't particularly like putting his trust in youth, even as second choice, in any position. But if that was to happen, I don't think too many West Ham fans would complain about that. I think we'd love to see Scarles on the bench as an understudy to Emerson, and let's start bringing some players through.
I think what Freddie Potts done today by going on loan to a League One side is what I think Scarles should do. I think that he needs to go out on loan and really learn his trade big time. Yeah, you could chuck him in, but then if he doesn't perform, then the fan base will be on him. They will be on him. Even though he's one of our own, right? They will be on him like they are with Ben Johnson. Yeah, and everyone knocks Ben Johnson, and rightfully so, because he does put in some howling performances. But I think West Ham should be aiming a bit higher than that. I think West Ham, the youth should be a luxury, not relying on them. Do you know what I'm saying? And it seems like right now we're relying on the youth to come in and help us, rather than it should be sort of we should cherry pick the players from the youth, rather than sort of drag them in and keep them here, sort of thing. Do you know what I'm saying? But I don't know. I'm not really on that one with you. I'll rather see a left back here. I don't think West Ham should really get rid of Cresswell right now. Even though if they can get the decent money for him, until they get a proper replacement in. Do you know what I'm saying? If they're going to just get rid of him and shoehorn Ben Johnson as a left back or something, then yeah, it's just not good. It's just not good at all. Left back position is position West Ham have been looking for a long time. And if they're going to identify the geezer over in Rennes, who's supposed to be wanting to come to West Ham, he's good friends with Aguerd, then go and get him. Put the money down, get him. But West Ham just don't put the money down for no one at the minute. They really don't.
Yeah. I'd imagine... Do you think it was Aguerd who recommended him? Because we've had this before.
Yeah.
Where we've had... Was it Souček recommended Safal, didn't he?
Yeah.
So...
Aguerd's recommended him all day long.
Yeah. That could happen. Because, we have signed recommendations from other players. But yeah, we'll agree to disagree on that one. I think Scarles is a cracking young player. I know he's still very young, but that shouldn't necessarily go against him. I don't know about this Freddie Potts on loan to Wickham. League One, for me, he would have to play every week.
He will do.
To make it worthwhile. He's got to play every week. If he plays every week in League One for Wickham, I think that will be good for him. Because he's playing the men's game now, week in, week out in League One.
Decent club, Wickham, mate. I'll be honest with you. Wickham and
Wickham play nice. Wickham play the right kind of football as well.
Matt Bloomfield's there, who's a good man. He's a decent manager. Wickham in League One will always be sort of a competitive side. It's not going to be it ain't going to be like Peterborough a few years ago with Connor Coventry, where they put Connor Coventry over to Peterborough and they was fighting relegation in the Championship. Wickham will be up there as one of the sort of the top 10 in that sort of league.
They'll be looking to make the playoffs.
I agree, yeah. So he's going to play. He's going to be and that's what he needs. He needs a League One side. And obviously Wickham, he probably lives out in sort of Bedfordshire somewhere anyway, or out in sort of Hertfordshire. So Wickham, not far from his home, is a good move for him, I think.
Yeah, hopefully it will be. I'm a little bit, I don't know, our loan, I think Dexter here is kind of maybe feeling the same way I am. I just always get skeptical when we send out players on loan. We seem to be terrible at developing players through the loan system. I don't know why. They just very rarely seem to come back, much better than when they left. I hope that won't be the case with Freddie. But look, if he's not going to have any chance to feature in the first team next season, which under Moyes, let's be honest, none of the youngsters, maybe Bar Obama, are going to get a look in. So he probably is better off. I think he's beyond the point now where we can keep playing him, for in Premier League 2. I don't think that's going to bring him on. I don't think that's going to do much for him. I think he needs now to be playing men's football, proper man football. And he'll certainly get that in League One. It would be a good experience for him. So let's hope he shines at Wickham and does well there and comes back, a better player.
I will say one thing about Mbamba. He looks a very special kid. I will say that. I see him live the other week, last Saturday. He come on in the second half against Declan Rice. I was there. I see him. The kid's special, man. We've got a very,
Yeah,
very good
he's
player in there.
scoring goals, and
Yeah.
you know what I really liked as well? You remember that shot he took from 20, 22 yards out in Australia? Who were we playing the first game?
Perth Glory.
Perth Glory. You know, we hit a lovely kind of shot from outside the area. Keeper made a brilliant save to tip it onto the post. But, you know, his technique in hitting that shot, it was bang on. It was on target. You know, he kept it down. It was curling, dipping. It was a lovely, lovely shot technically. And it showed, you know, that he's got the technique as well. It's not just that he's big and he's strong and he's quick or whatever.
His positional play, Tommy, is excellent, mate.
Yeah.
His awareness of where to be in the box. People compare him to Antonio. I don't. I compare him to a young, very young Romelu Lukaku, mate. The way he sort of reads the game. Yeah, he looks on it all the time. Like the other week, he come back from Australia. He comes in the second half, and I was expecting him to sort of just put in sort of a sort of decent performance, but nothing major, considering he's just flown around the world, and he's running around everywhere. I mean, he's everywhere. And the goal he scored, good work from Cornet the other week, but his positional play made the goal because he left the defenders dead, and basically he just floats into the box and puts the ball away. He's a very good player, mate, and I'm excited about him. I will say that if we can get him up front this season and him start scoring goals, he could be like an Evan Ferguson type player. Where he's a young, he's fearless, and you just never know. Like West Ham might have just pulled a gem out of somewhere. Do you know what I'm saying? So I hope he really does well this season, the kid. I really do, because I see him the other week and I was very, very impressed. When you see him live in front of you, he knows what he's doing. This kid, he really does. The only thing I will say with him, just to sort of give him a little bit of negativity, is that when he does have a shot, defenders can read what he's going to do before he does it, but that will come in time. But he will learn that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like when he's lining up the shot or he's about to sort of let a shot go, defenders are always on him to like because he's basically they know what he's going to do. But if he's a bit more cuter in his sort of approach, he's a very, very good player. Extremely good.
Yeah, and like I say, that will come with games. You know,
Yeah.
He'll cop onto that after a little bit. But yeah, very, very encouraging from Obama. And the big thing for him is that Moyes seems to really like him. So, and you know how Moyes is when he likes you. You know, if Moyes, if you're in Moyes' good graces as a player and he rates you and he really likes you, then I think you're on to a winner. So he's lucky that Moyes kind of really fancies him, I think. So
I think if you rely on him, it's the worst possible outcome. Like if you're relying on him to score goals, then like you're going to put pressure on him. But if this geezer can come on or even start in games where he's in the front two, like someone just mentioned it in your chat, Scamacca and him up front, I won't be against that because he's a runner. Like Mbamba runs everywhere. Like, and he's
the main reason Moyes loves him, I think, is the work rate.
His pressing is extremely good. Extremely good. Puts his body everywhere. Good
yeah, and actually, you mentioned Cornet. I was going to, before we finish up, I was going to ask you about that as well. Some encouraging signs with Cornet.
He looked good last week, mate. I'll tell you that now. I see him live, and he looked 10 times or 50 times the player that he was last season. He looks on it last season. Now, people will say it was Dagenham and Redbridge, fair enough, and all that. But the way I look at it is with him, is he was on the ball straight away. Like the goal he scored from Ben Rama's assist, he was in the right place, one touch finish, bang. Obviously the second goal where he sort of closed the people down. Where's his position this season is an interesting topic of conversation because people say on the left, people say up front. Like, is he a sort of person that you could bring on and sort of make into a striker? I don't know on that one, but I want to see Cornet tomorrow in France from the start. I don't want to see Ben Rama. I don't want to see anyone else. I want to see Cornet start, and then I want to see him against Bayern Leverkusen because we all know what Ben Rama's like. We all know what Fornals is like. Yeah, we all know what these other players are like. Cornet's the one that we need to see regularly now and go, right, is he ready? If he turns up tomorrow in Rennes and he scores tomorrow, then I think we might have that will feel like a new signing in Maxwell Cornet being here. like because
that left hand side could get very busy, couldn't it? I mean, there could be massive competition all of a sudden. If Borges comes in and if he looks really good in training, we might see Borges if we get him in during the week. We might see him feature a bit in a preseason game, potentially, or get some kind of a look at him. So it could be interesting on that left hand side. If like Cornet looks like he's put those injury problems behind him. Whatever they did with that specialist in France, hopefully, that seems to have done the trick. Fingers crossed.
He looks a completely different player to me. I know you can't read into it too much because it's only a friendly, but when you're watching him and if you're watching him on his own without the ball, his movement is very good. Like he looks like he was back to how he was for Burnley a few years ago.
Yeah.
Now, if we can get him fit and firing, then we've got a very good player on our hands. Do you know what I'm saying? But
and he brings in what he brings as well is that lightning pace.
Yeah.
So which is lacking in the team. We're too slow, and that's another reason I don't particularly want McTominay or James Ward-Prowse. I think it's just too pedestrian. We're already bloody slow. I don't want more pedestrian players. We need to inject a bit, especially as we're going to be a counter-attacking team. We've got to inject some pace into it, So hopefully we can do that in the midfield. But
I think he will come. I think he will come good though, Tommy. If I'm to be honest, I don't know why. I've got a feeling with old Cornet. I think he might be the one that sort of could surprise a few people this season.
Yeah, because I think the talent is there. I mean, I was happy with the signing when we brought him in because, like in a really poor Burnley team that got relegated, I mean, he was a real shining light for them. I mean, even in that poor team, I can't remember the exact stats, but his goals and assists were seriously good for a team that struggled as much as Burnley did. And we saw glimpses of it early last season. The problems he can cause opponents. He terrorised Chelsea really at Stamford Bridge when he came on and scored a goal which shouldn't have been ruled out. And he caused them all kinds of trouble with his direct running and his pace and his movement. And I'm really kind of hoping to see the best of Cornet next season. And I'll tell you what, he'll be a serious asset for us next season.
If we keep him fit, I would say he could be... he could be one of them players. He's a player to watch.
Cornet is my dark horse for next season.
Yeah,
I think Cornet have a breakthrough season at West Ham.
Where would you play him?
I think he's got the talent, the ability is there, and like you say, if he stays fit, I really still think we've got a really good player in our hands. So it'll be really interesting to see. I think he's good enough that he could potentially not take Benrahma's place. Like if he comes on and he lights it up, he'll put Benrahma under serious pressure.
Because what it is, he can play either side, can't he? He can play out left or right.
That's important too, because I think Bowen's had it all his own way as well on that right-hand side. I mean, the first half of last season especially, I mean, Bowen was, let's be honest, Bowen was dog shit.
Yeah.
He really was. And if we'd have had a fully fit and firing Max Cornet, that would have given us an option on that right-hand side where Moyes might have been willing to say, all right, Jared, look, it's not happening for you. We're just gonna take you out the firing line, and we're just gonna let you refine your form, like in training and stuff. And we're gonna put Max in there for a bit, and who knows what might have happened. But,
I think you will know more tomorrow. I think if he plays tomorrow, I think you'll know a lot more tomorrow in France. Obviously, against Leverkusen will be another good test, I would say. And I actually said this the other day, funny enough. I said if he plays in both them games and he lights it up, I'd want him to start against Bournemouth. I really would. Because if you've got Cornet on the left and Bowen on the right, even though I do back Benrahma up, like sometimes you just got to go with the player who's sort of like who's up for it. Do you know what I'm saying? Who looks like he's like gelling like at the right time. Do you know what I mean? And do you know what? Cornet, he's one of them players. You just don't know what you're going to get. So let's hope we get the Burnley Cornet this season.
Do you know what? I'll be honest. I think Cornet might be our second choice striker at the moment. I think Scamacca, will probably start against Bournemouth. But if he's not doing it early in the season, I won't be surprised if Cornet gets a chance up top. Now, I don't know what the situation is going to be, obviously. We'll talk about this maybe last thing before we go. What do you think is going to happen with Antonio? It's looking now like this move to Turkey ain't going to happen.
Saudi, yeah.
Or Saudi, excuse me, isn't going to happen. I don't know that for certain, but that's the word on the street, as it were, that is not going to go to Saudi Arabia. We may. Do you think he's still going to be a West Ham player? Do you think someone might come in for him?
I don't know, mate. Do you know what? At present, right, and I've been one of the people to say it's time to say goodbye to Antonio. But unless West Ham are going to go out and get a good replacement, someone who can come in and who's a decent replacement, then I don't think you can get rid of him. But if someone's going to prepare to offer you 10 million for him, then you've got to take it. Do you know what I'm saying? Because like you ain't going to get that next season. Well, I think it's his last season. I think like in his contract, or he's got 2 years, one of the two. Yeah. So like we're going to have to do something there. Do you know what I'm saying? Maybe Antonio knows that he ain't going to be first choice, and Scamacca is going to be number one. Right? Maybe he's looked at it and thought, well, I want to go somewhere and play first team football.
Yeah.
Do I think he'll be here? I've got a funny feeling he will be here, mate. I don't know why. I just think I don't think a Premier League team's going to come in and pay 10 million for him. I think the only real teams that will come in for him maybe MLS or Saudi or something like that. So I think he stays.
I'm trying to think of a Prem team that would want someone like Antonio right now, and I can't think of one off the top of my head. I know Wolves have lost Jimenez, but I think they're okay for strikers. I think they're probably okay up top. So I don't think Wolves would drop 10 million of their very limited budget on Antonio. He doesn't really suit their style of play anyway.
But they do need a striker. They are looking for a striker. They just got rid of Jimenez to Fulham.
Yeah. So Wolves possibly might be looking for something. I'm just thinking of the teams that came up. I wouldn't imagine he'd be a Vincent Kompany type of player. Luton, I don't know what their situation is with finances, or if they even need a striker, if it's a priority position for them. So it's hard to say. I suspect as well Antonio will probably be here simply because no Prem team, like you say, is going to come in for him, and the Saudi thing is kind of arse has fallen out of that.
Can we afford to let him go though? In your eyes, like if someone did come in and like said, "Right, we'll give you 10 million for him." Like, in your eyes, do you think we can afford to let him go without replacing him?
I think we probably can. I think we have enough options. You know, Scamacca, I think obviously would start. As I said, I think Moyes sees Cornet as a backup striker at this point, essentially. You can play left wing, right wing, or up front. And Moyes has used him quite a bit. When he's taken Antonio off, he's put Cornet on. So when Scamacca was out of favour. So I think Moyes sees him as a forward. So that's two. And obviously, we've got Danny Ings is still at the club. No one's going to take Danny Ings off our hands, even for cheap, because his wages are ridiculous. No one's paying him 125k a week. So Ings will be there. And obviously, Mubama as well, I think, has really impressed Moyes. So I think Moyes sees it that we've probably got five. And then obviously, at a pinch, you can chuck Bowen up top too if you want.
Yeah.
So I think Moyes sees it right now. All in all, he probably has 6 options to play up top if needs be. Okay, they're not all maybe out-and-out strikers. We've probably got Ings, Scamacca and Mubama who are out-and-out kind of number 9s. But also we've got kind of Cornet there as well, and Bowen, who can also play up front if needs be. And he's obviously comfortable playing up front because he's done it with both Cornet and Bowen at times. So I think if we sold Antonio, I don't think we'd actually have to bring in a striker, to be honest. I'd like to see Mubama really become that second choice behind Scamacca, if I'm honest. I think it's time for him to put some faith in him and let him step up. When Scamacca comes off, chuck Mubama on for 10 minutes.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree, mate. Like, I think the only problem is with Antonio is he knows the way Moyes wants to play, and you can't knock him for that. He does know how Moyes wants to play, and A lot of the others don't really. I ain't gonna say Mbamba does, but I do like Mbamba. Like I think he's the sort of player that he's going to develop over the years to come. But
Yeah.
is he ready right now to come in and go, right, you're going to score 10, 15 goals in the Premier League? I'll be very, very shocked if he did. Because if he does, then we've got a top-class, world-class player in our hands.
Yeah.
But with Antonio, is he worth selling for 10 million? Maybe. But I think sometimes you might have to keep him here. Probably get him in January or something.
Yeah, and I prefer to see him go simply because I think it's time to move him on, and I think it's Mubama's time now to step up and fill that role. And plus, I want to see with Scamacca, I'm hopeful that he can also have a turnaround season, like I hope Cornet will have. I think the possibility is there. That Scamacca. I mean, Scamacca was actually like carrying an injury as well last season. I mean, he wasn't 100% either, and he's had that surgery now as well, and that's been kind of taken care of. And he looks sharp. In pre-season, he looks pretty sharp. He looks up for it. I know he doesn't smile a lot. He's not a happy-go-lucky kind of guy. So people see him on the pitch and they think maybe he's miserable or something. I think that's just Scamacca. But
what?
I don't think he's miserable.
Yeah, I think that gets taken massively out of context. I really do.
Yeah.
Like people moan about him smiling and all that and everything. If everyone goes back to the first goal he scored for West Ham against Wolves last year, he was celebrating quite unbelievably on scoring his first goal. I think what it is, Scamacca needs to be given time. I do believe in this kid. I've always said that. I think he scores 10, maybe 15 goals this season. I think if you he knows where the back of the net is, right? And if it's all really, it's how Moyes wants to use this kid. I think he's a quality player. If West Ham go and get rid of him, I think they are mad, absolute mad, because I've never known a club in all my life to have 100 plus strikers and only about 3 of them or 4 of them have worked, which is stupid. Do you know what I'm saying? Over the ownership of this club. Now, I think Scamacca's a good player. He might not smile.
The key with Scamacca is that you can't isolate him. You just can't do it. No. You've got to get players around him.
Great.
If he's got 100%. Players around him, I think he'll flourish and he'll score goals.
And you need pace around him and all. Because I look at him, when people say about Bowen, I like Bowen from that inside right position. I always have done. I think he's better off coming in infield rather than being up front or like that. Do you know what I mean? When West Ham done it last season, they played 5-3-2 and have Scamacca and Bowen up front against. I think it was Aston Villa away. I thought it was just not good. Because it just Bowen is just not a centre forward for me. He's an inside forward in a front three.
Yeah.
If you get him in that, then you've got a good player there.
Yeah, this is why I think it's vital that we get 2 midfielders in and that they're the right players, because with the 2 correct players, so to me the right balance would be you get in say Alvarez, right? DM, he sits. He doesn't have to get forward. He just sits. He shields the back 4, breaks up play, wins the ball back, all that good stuff. And then on the other side of him, you want like a box-to-box athlete, in my opinion. Someone who can get up and down the pitch, who'll help out defensively, when needed, when we don't have the ball, but can drive forward with the ball, carry it over distance, and drive the team forward. And it can make those drives and runs into the box, get shots off, get headers in. And then obviously Paqueta, who's the key for me in that 3, who'll play a bit more advanced. And so if we can do that and get it right, with Scamacca up top, even if he's the only striker, if we can get, say, someone, either Benny or Cornet on that left.
Yeah.
I'd like Cornet. I've nothing against Benny. I love Benny, actually. He's really grown on me, and I think his attitude in the circumstances he's had to face since he's been at the club, I think Benny's attitude has been absolutely top class and completely professional. He's won me over, Benny. I think he's a consummate professional, and he's earned his place on that left-hand side under Moyes, which wasn't easy for him because he got fucked around a lot by Moyes, in my opinion. But I do like the pace of Cornet on the left. But nonetheless, whether it's Benny or Cornet on the left, Bowen on the right, with Scamacca up top, and then Paqueta, because the midfield is properly balanced, able to play a bit more advanced, and he can get up there as well and make some things happen in and around the box. So if he's got that support left and right of him, and he can interplay with Benny, or Cornet, can interplay with Bowen and Paqueta, and they're all around him. He's a very clever player, I think, Scamacca. And if he's got players around him, he can pass as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can pop the ball into him, he can hold it up, he can knock it off, he can turn, spray a ball about. He's got good feet, Scamacca. And I think if you get players around him, I absolutely believe in his ability.
Yeah,
and like you,
one.
I think he will absolutely get double figures, 100%. And I mean, just in the Premier League. I don't mean all competition. I mean, in the Premier League, he will score double figures. And potentially, I think he's so good, I think potentially he could have an explosive season if everything went really well.
I think
could really get up there with it could end up on 16, 17, 18 goals potentially if things went really, really well. I think he's a genuinely quality player. And like you say, I mean, all kinds of finishes.
Yeah.
All kinds of finishes. I mean, he can score with his head. We've seen that. He makes those near post runs. He can flick the ball into the net from the near post. He can volley. He can hit low drives from range. I mean, we saw him. We've seen him hit screamers. We've seen him, hit low drives on the angle inside the far post. We've seen him score all kinds of goals. I think if we can supply him with ammunition, he'll score all season. And I'm really hopeful that happens, because the first season has gone really badly for him for various reasons. But I think if we get it right with Scamacca, I honestly think we've got a cracking number 9 on our hands.
I think we have. I agree with everything you've just said. The only fear I have is with Moyes, like using him in the right way. Like, I do believe everything what you just said though is correct. Like, pace. West Ham needs to have pace up front, right, on the wing especially. Obviously, you got Bowen on one side. For how much I do back Benny, and I have done since minute 1. Is he a pace merchant? No, he's not. If Borges was to go on the left for me and he comes in, then great. But someone said to me the other day, funny enough, he's never played a game under Pep, like not one game. Like, he didn't.
I mean, there's virtually no chance Moyes just chucks him in.
I know, and that's a bit of a concern there, because you're signing a player really who's never played one game in the Premier League or any time. Do you know what I'm saying? But
I think with Cornet and Benny there, I think we've thankfully we're not under any pressure to. Borges won't be under any pressure. We can actually develop him and ease him into the team and let him grow into it and let's see what he's got. We can play him kind of at our convenience, as it were. Carabao Cup, maybe the group stage of the Europa League if things are going really well there, stuff like that, and maybe some substitute appearances in the Prem. I think we can take our time with Borges a bit and kind of ease him in, and hopefully, he proves to be a cracking little player.
I agree, mate. I really, really do. I hope so too, mate.
Yeah, listen, I'm going to leave it there, mate. Really appreciate you jumping on. It's always better when I have someone to kind of bounce ideas off of and get opinions from. Helps with the flow, So, as always, look, hit me up next Friday if you're free and available. Let me know. I'm always very happy to have you on. So appreciate it as always, mate. Also to everybody in the chat. For some reason, my chat kind of stopped. I don't know why. But sometimes it goes a bit funny. But appreciate everyone for being there as always. You really be helping me out if you could like the video if you're watching it back. Hit the like button for me, please. It just helps to push it, and on YouTube more people will see it showing up on their feed. If you enjoyed the show, and hopefully you can all join me again next Friday night. I said this last week. Hopefully next Friday night we do the show, we'll have some signings to talk about. Hasn't worked out in the last 7 days. We haven't signed fucking anyone, not even a coach. So I'll say it again. Hopefully next week we'll have a signing or two that we can actually discuss. But we'll find out over the next few days. But until then,